Welcome back to Shelby's Story Spotlight. In the spotlight this week is One for the Murphys by Lynda Mullaly Hunt. In this episode, I'm specifically explaining the plot analysis. One for the Murphys falls under the genre of realistic fiction. This story was told through the protagonist, Carly Connors, a young girl with a traumatic past. The author helps reveal Carly's past by using flashbacks. One for the Murphys follows protagonist Carly Connors, a young girl who ends up in foster care due to a traumatic abuse incident involving her mother and stepfather Dennis. Carly gets placed in foster care and gets sent to the Murphys in Connecticut. They can be described as loving and supportive. Their family includes Mr. and Mrs. Murphy, Daniel, Adam, and Michael Eric. Additionally, Carly is resistant to the Murphys' kindness and welcoming gestures. Carly struggles with the feelings of anger and betrayal. She struggles with these emotions because she is upset about the whole abuse situation. She is full of guilt as she feels if she accepts the Murphys' love that she is forgetting about her mother. She finds it difficult to trust and open up to the Murphys due to her past experiences. The Murphys' lifestyle is so much different than the life that Carly had lived before. Growing up, Carly's mother taught her to be tough and to hide her emotions, while the Murphys are the complete opposite and try to convince her that it's normal to express her emotions. Carly struggles to make relationships with people at school, and she often gets bullied. She's assigned a project with Tony, one of her bullies, despite their hate for each other. Tony and Carly soon begin to realize that they have more in common than they think and build a forever lasting friendship. Carly begins to bond with the Murphy family, especially Mrs. Murphy. Mrs. Murphy shows Carly what a good mother looks like and treats her with unconditional love and support. Throughout the book, Carly struggles with her identity and self-worth, questioning whether she deserves the love and care that the Murphys offer her. In the end, Carly faces a difficult decision about her future. She has to decide if she's going to return to her mother or stay with the Murphys. Carly ultimately chooses to return to her mother, but she will forever carry the lessons and love from the Murphy family. Carly Connor is one of the main characters in One for the Murphys. She is a 12-year-old girl who has experienced trauma through physical abuse. Her journey is one of healing and personal development. At the beginning of the novel, Carly could be described as emotionally closed off and self-reliant. Her mother is to blame for these characteristics as she taught her not to show or express any of her emotions. On page 60, Carly states, I remember how she did that. I've been trying to tell myself that I must have remembered it wrong, but here he is to tell me that my mind wasn't fooling me. I didn't think anything could hurt me more than the beating. I was wrong. I didn't want Mrs. Murphy to hear anything else, so I asked her to leave. This goes to show that when Carly gets put in tough situations, she likes to deal with them herself rather than venting to someone else about it. In this case, Carly was talking to the officer about her and her mother's beating. This is a touchy subject for Carly, so she asked Mrs. Murphy to leave so that she wouldn't worry about her. This seems to happen to Carly a lot in the beginning of the book. Whenever she feels her emotions build up, she isolates herself until she calms down so no one has to worry about her. Towards the end of the novel, Carly evolved into a completely different character. She learned to accept the love from the Murphys and could be described as an emotionally vulnerable person. On page 223, Carly states, I think back to when Mrs. Murphy told me that you regret the things you don't do more than the things you do. This gives me permission, and I am up the 3 steps in one leap. I wrap my arms around her without looking at her face and rest my head on her shoulder. I love you, Mrs. Murphy. This goes to show that by the end of the book, Carly has learned to express her emotions. She learned that it is okay to show affection towards the people you love, and that is not weird, like her biological mother always told her. It is significant that Carly changed throughout the novel to show the readers that affection or love can really change a person in their perspective on life. Carly ultimately evolved throughout the novel because of her experience with the Murphys. Additionally, Carly resisted love and emotion from the Murphys, but as she spent more time with them, she transformed it into a completely different person than the one she started as. Julie Murphy, often referred to as Mrs. Murphy in the book, is one of the central characters who plays a significant role in Carly Connor's life. Throughout the book, Mrs. Murphy demonstrates extreme patience with Carly, who initially resists her love and efforts to connect. She understands that Carly has a tough exterior and that she needs time and space to adjust to their family and that in the love that they offer. On page 190, Mrs. Murphy states, "It's okay, Carly. You can take time. We're not going anywhere." This quote shows that Mrs. Murphy truly understands Carly and that she needs time to get comfortable to open up. She doesn't try to pressure Carly into telling her information about her past life. Instead, she waits till Carly comes to her. Mrs. Murphy does not change or evolve throughout the book, but she does stay the same mother-like figure to Carly. This is significant because her consistency provides a stable and reliable presence to Carly, which ultimately leads to her healing and self-development. The central theme in this book is the healing power of love and compassion. As stated before, Carly came from a troubled and abusive family before getting placed in foster care with the Murphys. Despite Carly's behavioral problems, the Murphys still treated Carly as their own. They treated her with kindness and supported her through everything. Carly finally starts to build a loving relationship with the Murphy family, although it did take a while. Carly soon understands why the Murphys treat her so well. It's because they truly love her. This is one reason why Carly starts to trust and open up to the Murphys. She knows that when they say or do something nice to her, that they actually mean it and that they're not just saying it to satisfy her. This is when we really start to see a change in Carly as a character. On page 203, Mrs. Murphy says to Carly, "You are more than enough, Carly. You are more than enough just as you are." This moment captures the unconditional love that Carly receives from Mrs. Murphy and their family. This is significant as it highlights the effect of how a loving and compassionate family can impact an individual. The theme of love and compassion isn't something that is seen in the start. It develops as the book goes on. The absence of love and compassion early on is what makes it stand out. There are a few literary techniques that were used throughout the book, but the most commonly used one was flashbacks. These flashbacks were used in a way to show the readers how Carly's life was before living with the Murphys. On pages 30 and 194, flashbacks were used to describe the physical and mental abuse that Carly had received by her stepfather, Dennis. These flashbacks described in detail how Carly and her mother got sent to the hospital that night and how she was left with the trauma to deal with all by herself. One of the flashbacks reveals that Carly's mother helped Dennis abuse Carly. She believes that her mother held her ankles so that her stepfather could get to her. In the flashback later in the book, Carly remembers that her mother wasn't holding her ankles to try to harm her, but she was trying to protect her from Dennis. This is significant because without the flashback, it would be very difficult to understand how Carly's life was before she got sent to the Murphys. Also, we would not have known anything about Carly's mother or how she and Dennis treated Carly.